Hi everyone, I'm Bob Stevens. I'm on the CEVEDS group, currently the chair. I've been on for several years, and I'm here to welcome everybody to this meeting. We're very excited. This concept of a green building cluster is something that we've been talking about for years now, 7, 8 years I would say. The idea that there is sort of specialty knowledge and a preponderance of expertise in this area, in this region, that could somehow be leveraged into being more successful in that to create more jobs. So today we're really launching an effort that has taken many, many years. There's a lot of smart people working on this. We've had Vital Economies that have come back and verified, in fact, there's something here to work on. And all of you, really, which is what it's going to take to kind of pull this together. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for starting this process. Hopefully you'll stick with us as we work over the next several months to figure out how, in fact, to build a piece of this economy that starts to work around this building cluster. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex and let him talk about the real issues that we're dealing with today.
Thanks, Bob. I'm Alex Wilson, founder of Building Green, which is a local Brattleboro company that really has a national influence in the green building world. Also, president of the Resilient Design Institute, a fairly new organization, 4 years old, that's advancing strategies for improving the resilience of buildings and communities. So thank you all for coming. This is an amazing turnout. We're super excited to see so many people here. And to follow on what Bob said, we have been talking about economic development in this so-called green economy or green building, sustainability, resilience world for quite a while. It really started with discussions with Jeff Lewis, who was the executive director of the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, BDCC. And I'll apologize right off, there are going to be a lot of acronyms thrown around here. There is a sheet in your packet that lists some of the main ones, so please refer to that. But Jeff gave me a call in 2007 that he wanted to pull a few people together to brainstorm about how we could capitalize on the green businesses that were located in Brattleboro and the surrounding area and really make more of that happen. You know, more would be a good thing. Jeff was looking into the future, recognizing that Vermont Yankee wouldn't be here forever. We needed to build a strong economy based on a more sustainable long-term vision. So Bob Stevens and I and Ralph Mima, who's here, were part of that. A handful of other people. We met over the span of a few months at over dinners, and that really began a process to look at this whole issue. So now fast forward to 2013, I was at a Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation annual meeting, and Frank Knott was the presenter. And I was very impressed with the issues he was raising about the local economy and strengthening rural economies. We struck up a conversation about green building, and Frank really picked up on that as a possible framework for economic development here that we could build on. So, we began extensive discussions. SEON got involved, the Sustainable Energy Outreach Network, and facilitated a series of meetings that lasted a couple of years to really look at the assets locally and figure out how we can build from that. So that evolved into looking to some of the funds that were available with the closure of Vermont Yankee to really build on that and make something blossom from it. So that's what we're here today about. We've got an amazing team of folks that are sort of providing the 30,000-foot view of what we're trying to do. The leadership team, Nadav Malin is here. He's the president now of Building Green. Bob Stevens, you've met. Carrie Gaunt is the sustainability director at Keene State College. Dan Yates from Brattleboro Savings and Loan is here. Janice Warren is here from One Report, a company that not a lot of people locally know about, but it's a real leader nationally in reporting for Fortune 500 companies about their environmental performance. Andrew Dye with Unity Homes in Walpole, New Hampshire. Unity is really changing, I believe, changing the way buildings are going to be built over the next 10 or 20 years. Bill Murray with Berkeley and Feller Real Estate, and Michael Knapp with Green River Associates, a cutting-edge software and database management company. So with that, I think I'll turn things over to Frank Knott with Vital Economy. Frank came up at the beginning of the week from Baltimore. He wanted to get out of the snow, so came to Vermont. So we look forward to a really productive discussion, and think of today as really the start of a process that will last a little over a year to really evaluate these ideas. One last thing, just to point out that this isn't a Brattleboro initiative, it's not even a Windham County initiative, it's a larger initiative that spans the tri-state area, covering 4 counties, Windham and Bennington County in Vermont, Franklin County in Massachusetts, and Cheshire County in New Hampshire. Really recognizing that by working together, the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts. So Frank?
Thank you so much, Alex. And what Alex didn't tell you, that he is chairing this whole operation. And I want to, as Alex said, I'm from Baltimore. Jim Hegwood, who's over here, will also be doing part of this presentation, facilitation, is we are part of what Vital Economy, as Bob said. We are a social enterprise, private sector executives who have spent the rest of our careers for the last 24 years taking successful business executives into rural markets who, throughout the country, who have been in economic decline for a number of years, and they want to change the way their economies are functioning, and also loss of young people and bringing back. So we've been doing this for about 24 years, and I said this morning to the former Chief of Staff, Governor Shumlin, and the President of Fairpoint, that this is one of the 5 best communities in the nation, actually in North America, that we've worked with over 24 years in terms of following the rigor of a performance-based economic strategy. And you'll see some numbers today that Jim will be reporting on that will talk about the changes that have already begun to occur from the strategy that BDCC and CEVEDS and their leadership have been following for the last 3 or 4 years. What I'd like to do is really give you an overview of the agenda to start with. We've got a jam-packed session. You are going to be breaking out a little later on, and we'll go through this. I'm going to review what CEVEDS is all about and what we call the Smart CEVEDS projects, and I'll talk about that. That's the comprehensive economic development strategy. Then Candace Pearson from Building Green and Jim Hegwood from Vital Economy will be talking about research that we've been doing on nationally on the market itself for the green economy and the various segments, what the size of that market is. Jim Hegwood will also, for the first time, help you all understand what this economy of 4 counties looks like. That's never been pulled together before between the three states. So for the first time, you'll be able to look at this as one economy, where all the jobs are, what the conditions are, and also what we believe to be the size of the green sector economy in these 4 counties currently. After that, we're going to take questions, comments, ideas that you have based on this information. So please make notes as that information is coming at you. I should also tell you that we're going to be giving you a summary of this research, but on the BDCC, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation website, all of the detailed research is being made available to everybody that participates in this cluster work, so you can have access to it. And one of the values of participating in industry cluster work is those of you who are in this process get access to research your individual companies would probably never be able to afford to get access to. Okay, and to make even current decisions. So that you're going to get real value out of being part of this, as well as the educational institutions as well. Okay, then Jim is going to move into helping you understand what this industry cluster work plan looks like between now and November. Hey Jim, come on in. There are seats back here. And then he's going to review what you're going to do in the breakout sessions. There's going to be 3 breakout sessions. One will be in green building products and services that will be over in a room over there on just opposite. There's one room in between, but there's one about this size. The Knowledge Center discussion will be in here, and then the finance, insurance, appraisal, financial tools will be in the far end smallest room, because that's where the vault is that finance this whole thing. We will then break out, we'll spend 45 minutes, a full 45 minutes in those breakout sessions. And then the chair, there we have Andrew Day over here. Andrew, just put your hand up over here, who's with Unity Homes, Chief Operating Officer at Unity Homes, I believe, is going to be he's chairing that action team with regard to products and services. Peter Yost here, and where's your coach? Abby Walton from Keene State. I'm sorry, from Antioch shouldn't have said that, should I? Are co-chairing the Knowledge Center, which will be here, and then Dan Yates here is going to be chairing the finance, insurance, real estate area, and for discussions about how we create enabling solutions. The breakouts will happen, and then we will have Alex Wilson and Alan Grenold, the head of BDCC, will close the meeting. So that's what we're going to try to do in this 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 50 minutes. Next, what I'd like to do is just comment. How many of you are aware that the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategy and BDCC did a comprehensive economic development strategy for this region? Raise your hands, how many, so I get a sense. So a good number of you. Okay, those of you from New Hampshire and from Massachusetts that are part of this effort probably didn't know this. This has become a significant national model for doing comprehensive economic development strategies, as acknowledged by the Economic Development Administration. I'm not going to go through all these details. At the heart of this said strategy are 4 major goals. 1 is to reverse population decline. 2 is to increase the number of well-paying jobs with very specific metrics attached to it, improve workforce quality, and raise household income relative to surrounding areas. At the time when we were doing the SEDS, the average household income in this county, Windham County, was actually less than Cheshire and Bennington and Franklin County when this was done. So when you're thinking about this cluster, the green building cluster is a major initiative, one of the most important initiatives of this strategy, to reverse the impact of the closure of Vermont Yankee for all 3 of these states and the 4 counties of those states. But it's also intended to address every one of these 4 primary goals. So as you're in your discussions, understand that underlying what we choose to do has to focus on how do we make sure the actions we take actually impact these metrics that we're trying to accomplish. Now, for the Green Building Initiative, and by the way, we're using the term green building, we're using the term resilient design, we're using the term the Innovation Hub for sustainability. You all are going to help us figure out what this really should be called, and we're just using Green Building Cluster as a placeholder right now. And everybody has an opinion about what's limiting or what's too expansive about this. Suffice it to say that the research that Candace will be going through will help you understand what is the green goods, and the Bureau of Economic Analysis has a term called green goods and services sector. It's GGS, okay? And we have all the industries that are part of that sector. And that's the field we're looking at. And we have to make some choices about where we're going to focus, and you're going to begin to help us do that today. So the objectives here are for this cluster engagement to get significant engagement across the 4 counties in the people who have a direct interest in this field. We want to build valuable natural economy connections. What we mean by natural economy is state boundaries, county boundaries, town boundaries don't matter to people in business. and to economies. So this natural economy has a lot of assets associated with this industry across those 4 counties. We want to map all the valuable pieces of the supply chain that exist in this area that serve this industry, and look at unique regional assets, and then we're going to determine at least 4 niche markets with 9 to 12 business opportunities within each of those niche markets to pursue. And we're going to do that in looking at 4 areas. One is, can this be an innovation hub of the nation around the knowledge of this whole sector that people want to gravitate to and be part of? 2, can we be a robust producer, designer, producer and manufacturer and servicer of products and services, not just to this region. We're looking at this as a national, North American, at least opportunity, if not global. 3, we believe, based on research, that there's a significant need for new finance, insurance, and appraisal solutions that recognize the value of these products and services installed into the built environment and to the environment around these buildings, that increase the value and increase economic performance. Therefore, the way you finance them, the way you insure them, the way you appraise them should be different. And we think this could be the home for the nation for all those new ideas and develop businesses around all of those. And then establish a sustainable plan to build this cluster here long term and make it a model for the nation. That's all we're going to do between now and November. Okay? And so what we're going to do is build a roadmap for this new economic driver, and this gives you a sense that the green goods and services, and I'm not trying to steal Candace's thunder here, is doubling every 3 to 5 years. It's been doing this for the last 10 to 15 years. There's currently a $300 billion in new market opportunity by 2020. Currently, it's around a $300 billion market. It looks like it'll be at least $600 billion by 2020. And there are 10,000 new green goods and services jobs projected in addition to be here in 2020, in addition to the 12,000 jobs that are here. And what you'll see from the research that Candace will show you, or Jim will show you related to Candace's market research, is this state has a higher percentage of its workers in this sector than the entire country. So we have a real capability to take care of it. So Vital Economy's view, and you have to check this as we go through this process, is saying that we have the opportunity to take the 2,200, this region currently, the 4 counties, we think has about 2,200 jobs in this sector and has about $238 million in economic impact, GDP, in these 4 counties. That's a big sector in these 4 counties. We believe, based on all the information we've looked at, that could double in the next 5 to 7 years. So we're not looking at 100 jobs here. We're looking at a sector that can be a massive growth engine for these 4 counties in an area that is absolutely in sync with the ethic of this community, okay, and the 4 counties and the culture. So now, I've been talking about market research. I want to turn it over to Candace and Pearson, who's at Building Green, and she's going to go through the market research that she pulled together across the nation. Welcome.
So I'm not sure if you guys got to read through that said slide, but those are some pretty steep goals that we're going to have to catch up on to do some real economic development. And I think I've got the fun slides here today because I get to talk about the huge opportunity that we can tap into to reach those goals. And so first I want to just give some background on how we conducted this research. We used a big frame, the green economy, and we used categories defined by Brookings Battelle Institute that defines what the green economy is. My presentation will focus a lot on green construction because that's where Building Green's expertise is. But there's more information in the full report about some of those other sectors. So first of all, green construction is about to make up a much bigger proportion of all construction than we've ever seen before. In 2011, there was a really great report done by the Dodge Institute, and it was projected that this year is going to be the first time that green construction is over half of all construction at 55%. The residential market's a little bit lower than that at 38%, but it's still catching up. And if you look at any of these other metrics, if you're looking from now until the next 3 to 5 years, it's doubling in almost every other metric. So you look at green building products and services, you look at construction spending, labor earnings, it's all projected to double. This is nationally. But the important part is to not understand that it's growing, that's an important part, but we really want to understand why it'd be growing. And I think that this is partly the reason why those estimates actually might be conservative. Basically, if you think about a building operator, they might spend 10% of their cost on things like energy or maintenance or mortgage. The other 90% that they're spending on their building is going to the people in their buildings. They're spending 90% on the salaries and the benefits. Green building people have been talking about this 10% for a long, long time. But we're now just getting to this other 90%. And that's because we're getting really great research now that's linking green building features to cognitive function, to better health impacts, or to what other people in the industry call non-energy benefits. So we're getting to this place now where the business case for green building features is becoming a much bigger deal than the $14 you're saving every month on your energy costs. The same story can be told about resilience. So when the World Economic Forum estimates that climate change is going to cause $4 trillion in cost to real estate assets. So if green building features or resilience features, most of the time they're kind of the same strategies, can help mitigate some of those losses, then you're talking about a whole nother motivation for pursuing these kind of strategies. This isn't just me talking about all of this. This is validated by industry surveys. A lot of practitioners are saying the same thing. They started doing green building in 2008 because it was the right thing to do for the climate and for the world. In 2012, people were saying, oh, well, owners are asking for it because there's a business case. And now in 2016 and beyond, they're saying, well, people are coming to ask for these type of things because it has health impacts, because it has resilience impacts. So this is an AIA survey, this is a Smart Market Report survey, and there's other surveys that validate that. So because we see this need, we know that there's going to be a huge market for specialized support services. This ranges from all types of things, but real estate and appraisal tools, for example, so that we're valuing these buildings correctly. Certifications are expanding. It's not just LEED anymore. People are referencing the WELL standard, and SITE. Financial tools, we need to be able to make green upgrades in a way that makes sense financially. And education. The practitioners need to be able to apply these strategies because the market is demanding it. So as I referenced earlier, we did look at the market opportunities and the whole green economy. And these are some of the highlights that came out of looking at agriculture opportunities. Agritourism and recreational services are becoming more in demand. Bio-based products industry is seeing a lot more interest. And more Americans are seeking out organic foods. And of course, all of this is a strength that Vermont has. In particular, Vermont is the #1 state in consuming locally sourced food. So that's a huge market that we're right in. And Massachusetts, too, ranks right up there. There's continuing support for clean energy. That's not going to stop. Only 14% of the U.S.'s current electricity production is in renewables. We need to get that number to 50% if we're going to meet climate change goals. And people are continuing to dump money into clean energy. It surpassed $100 billion in 2013 and is projected to rise. And Vermont in particular has a history of putting money towards clean energy. It was ranked #3 in 2013, and Massachusetts was ranked #2. So this pretty much wraps up the kind of highlights of the market analysis that we did. As Frank mentioned, the more comprehensive online version is going to be on the BDCC website. But did I see Michael Knapp walk in? No, not quite yet. Okay, well, he has some great ideas on what the market opportunity is from his perspective. So for now, I'm just going to hand it over to Jim, who will talk more about the economic research.
Thank you, Candace. And as Candace said, the more complete research document is going to be available at the end of the presentation, at the end of our day. You're going to get an address to be able to access all this information. So don't worry about trying to write everything down. And we're just giving you basically a snapshot at this point in time. So what I'm going to talk about is sort of this economic and demographic snapshot for the 4-county region. As Frank mentioned, just going to a website's not going to give you a 4-county, 3-state bit of data for your economy. So we've put this together so we can take a look at that, because this is our starting snapshot. And obviously, as Frank mentioned, we had done this once before for Windham County, and so we've done a little bit of comparison against those. But now we have this for this cross-border region that we're talking about. So this economy that you're in, the 4-county region, is about a $9.8 billion economy. Cheshire is the largest, about a third of that, of the GDP, low gross domestic product, the value of this economy, okay? But interesting enough, the region did grow at about 3.9% between 12 and 13, and lo and behold, Windham did grow faster than the other counties during that period of time, and obviously Franklin was at 4.7. So that's pretty exciting, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So the other part of this that we're interested in is what's the export value, the value of products that leave the area. So the regional export is about 14 billion. Again, that's with all the inputs and the ultimate end product value that's leaving. And that grew at about 3.6% between 12 and 13. And lo and behold, Windham was the fastest growing county as in respect to its exports during that period of time. But you also see that the distribution is relatively somewhat close to the same across all of the 4 counties as a percentage of that total 14 billion. So these are benchmarks for us also as we begin to, we're going to talk a little bit about goals, and we measure and we want to sort of look at those indicators of the economy as we push this green building cluster forward. Population is interesting. It's been stagnant. That was a finding of our previous report, and it's pretty low in its ethnic diversification. The population has been declining, as Frank mentioned earlier. That shows you between the 4 counties. But the thing that's important to notice here is the makeup of other ethnic races such as Hispanics is about 2% versus the U.S. population mix is about 7%. Foreign-born residents in this area is about 1%, while the national average is 13%. And what we're looking at here is to understand that human supply and human capital is what fuels this economy, and that goes back to this notion that we talked about earlier in the VIII plan, that human capital and population attraction is really important, especially that 16+ population in the workforce. So good information to know and why it's a priority for us. Job growth. Job growth has been stagnant, fairly stagnant, but it's showing very positive signs. So currently, this 4-county region, the total jobs in the area is about 144,000. A little bit over 144,000, down from a peak of 148. Okay, so we still lost a number of jobs, but we're seeing, especially 13 to 14, there was an increase in employment across the 4 counties of 1,100. The estimates so far for 2015 are very positive, and lo and behold, Windham County's led the region in job growth in that period of time of a growth of about 450 jobs. Again, across all sectors, very positive as we move forward here. But job creation, as Frank talked about, the 2,200 jobs, we're going to measure that over time. So how does this labor force in this area, how is it moving around? Because we want to know what's available for workforce as we grow the economy. Well, one of the striking things about this area, and definitely in comparison to where I live, west of Seattle, your workers typically live and work here. 68% of them live where they work. That's a very high number, much higher than where I live, and that your commuting in and your commuting out is relatively in balance, right? You don't have a bunch of people just living here and going someplace else to work and potentially spend their money and their entertainment dollars and those kinds of things. So that's a positive sign. And here's some additional opportunities though. Of these out commuters tend to be younger and slightly lower wage jobs they're looking for when they leave the area. So 5,000, 5,200 are under the age of 29, and they're commuting out for lower wage jobs. They're in the lower wage job category. 37% of the working tri-state residents of that under 28 work outside the area compared to 32% of all workers. So there's more of them leaving than there are in the area. And lastly, that again, their wage that they're going outside the area is less than $1,250 a month. So we look at this as an opportunity. That's a sign of underemployment, that they're going somewhere to get underemployment. So we want to bring those and capture them back into our workforce here. So we see that as a tremendous opportunity as we move forward. So I also looked at sort of the supply and demand. We want to look out into the future a little bit on this workforce and the human capital supply as we move forward. So we do know that population is basically still projected to be fairly stagnant, about 228,000. But what I find interesting here, and again, we're aware of this, but it gives more specific numbers to it, the number of residents in that 45 to 64-year-old age bracket, and 43% of them have post-secondary education. Of the people 25 to 44, there's a lower level of post-secondary or educational attainment in that demographic. So again, something to be aware of. And what we also found interesting on the supply side is that the post-secondary institutions in this area are supplying more graduates than the economy could absorb. Again, a huge supply factor, and many of those are in business management, they're in engineering, they're in a variety of fields that directly impact this economy. So on the supply side, we've got some positives that are taking place. On the demand side, we've got some things that we need to be aware of. First of all, because of that aging demographic, right, there's projected to be almost 36,000 job openings in the next decade, right? Even in 2015, there were 6,000 unique job postings just in this 4-county area. 6,000 job openings that were looking for employment. Okay, so much demand here, but we've also got some supply, and we need to match that up, and we need to be aware of this as we're going to grow this economy by 2,200 jobs. The other thing I wanted to look at, because Frank had talked about the discrepancy or the difference in the wage levels, here are the average wages across the 4 counties. Really not that big of a variation, okay? So we're aware of where those at and the amount of each one of those average wages. Again, important for us to know what those jobs are. Candace had mentioned that she used the Brookings-Battelle sort of definition of a green economy. Well, for this purpose, we use what Frank mentioned as the Bureau of Labor Statistics data of the green goods and services survey that they did. And these are the categories that make up that survey. This is the definition they used of the green goods and services. So there's about 333 different job categories that they surveyed across the country. And again, this was in 2011. And just as a note, because of sequestration, this is not being done by BLS anymore. But we do have availability of that survey, and if we did want to do it here locally, if the group finds out it's important, we could do that for the area, because the framework of the survey exists. So here's what the survey found. So this is 2011. So it was about 2.6% of all U.S. employment was in or related to green goods and services, okay? So in the private sectors, it was about 2.3, public sector, 4.2. Utilities was by far the largest concentration of green goods and services employment in the country, and you see a couple of other categories there. But this is what Frank was referring to. These are state data from that survey that measures the concentration of jobs in the green goods and services categories in the 3 states. U.S. employment 2.6, obviously New Hampshire's a little bit more, Massachusetts, but Vermont's way up there at 4.1. Much higher concentration than the national average. That's a good sign, and that validates and recognizes the strength of this green economy in our area. And so what we did is we applied those NAICS code categories and tried to basically produce what we believe to be sort of a benchmark. Okay, it's not perfect apples to apples, but it's as close as we can get right now, unless we did a survey on our own. But that gives us that result that Frank talked about. We're estimating, based upon this criteria, 2,200 jobs, about 238 million in economic GDP value is what makes up the green economy in the 4-county area that we're working in. Okay, so that's our benchmark. That's where we're going to start from, and we're going to build off of that. So again, economic snapshot. There's a lot more detail in the report that you're going to be able to look at on other subjects, but we just wanted to give you a snapshot. So,
Okay, now it's time for you all to make some comments. And before you, I just want to make one quick comment. You all are from all 3 states, 4 counties, and you represent everything from people who are actually install and build buildings that are green and sustainable and resilient. You are educators and heads of education organizations. You are realtors, you're heads of foundations. This is a number of consultants in the area, and you are manufacturers of products that serve the green goods and services sector. So it's a very diverse group. I want to point out one company that most people here never knew. How many of you are aware of a company called Green River? Well, about half of you. Okay, Michael Knapp is on the leadership team. Has one of the most significant indexes that they maintain for global social responsible investors in sustainable buildings across the world. $6 trillion worth of real estate in that index. Okay, so we have not only people who can build, not only people who can design and create new products and services and finance them, but we also have people who actually are creating software and information technologies and CAD system software design. It crosses the spectrum, and that's what we noticed in this area, that there is a very significant breadth and depth of capabilities across this region, from education to nonprofit to for-profit. And we even have one young lady over here, Carolyn Blitz, who I love having on this team, because Carolyn's head of the Stratton Foundation. What's really important, she worked in a little town called Indianapolis that we knew about, and that town had the audacity to believe 30 years ago, Carolyn, that they could be the USA amateur sports capital with no teams, no industries. They are today the USA sports capital. And we had dinner with Carolyn, and Carolyn said, for God's sakes, Frank, if we could build the USA sports capital in nothing, and you have all this, we ought to make this the national knowledge center of the world. So, and she's raring to go. I'm trying to hold her back, just a little bit so we can get going. But, so this team is filled with some really, really top talent that have come to the table for this effort. So what does this information that we put on the table for you this afternoon tell you? What comments do you have? What questions do you have about this information? And about the whole idea of being audacious about trying to go after 2,200 jobs and $238 million. Have we all lost our minds?
Absolutely not. I think
Dan, speak up a little bit.
This shows that we barely scratched the surface of what the potential is, and we have an opportunity, I think, at this point in time, to leverage, the whole green image of our area,
Right.
to attract that industry.
Yes, Jennifer.
What kind of research has been done so far about the potential within the sector based on what the vocational and trade schools are doing? It sounds like we've got a lot right now more qualified college graduates and university graduates than we're able to use, but one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of our members is that they need tradespeople.
So, if you all didn't hear that, the question about what are we doing, what research has been done on vocational development, we actually have begun to identify, and Andrew actually works in that area in Franklin County, and let's see, we have Keene State has a program. Antioch certainly is developing people in these fields. We have, Marlboro certainly is. What we've identified is that once we know what the opportunity is, we need to build a workforce strategy as part of this cluster, okay? So that's an intentional program that will take place in this. And Jim can go over where that fits in the 4 milestones. Yes, Peter.
Frank, could we have, this is Peter Yost from Building Green, could we have each person say their name and their organization as they ask their question? Because a lot of us know many of the folks here, but most of us don't know everybody.
Jennifer,
Jennifer Mayer, PC. I'm with NESI, the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association.
Dan, you.
Dan Yates from Brattleboro Savings.
Okay. Who else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Morse. I'm a builder locally and a board member of Sustainable Energy Outreach Network. One of the things that SEON has been struggling with is getting people who are in our industry to actually participate together, to collaborate together. And we have a very strong base, but it's only a base. And we really need to have people who are interested and busy, you're all busy, to step up and collaborate with us and anyone else in the green building sector to share and learn from each other.
Good comment. And the best way to get people to the table that are busy is to show them opportunity, okay, that's real. And that's how we tend to get people, and that's why these very specific cluster strategies are really important to get people to focus on that. Any other comments or questions about the information? Challenges? Yes.
Vern Berbinger, UVM Extension. I just have a question about the leadership team's vision of the boundaries. You showed one slide about agriculture. Forestry is a big industry in this area. Is that included in this green cluster, or just sort of supportive on the outside of all of those? Is that in even the federal, those 333 categories of jobs?
Yes.
Is that in there?
Yes, forestry and sustainable agriculture is all part of that. And this group is going to have to, with the assistance of the leadership team, we've got to begin to take this very large opportunity and narrow it to the areas that our assets can enable to happen. And so we have taken a very broad view of the concept of sustainable environments, resilient environments, and green building products and services. And we have to begin what we'll be doing between this, we're ending milestone 1 right now, which is formation, primary research, And we're now going to go into significant asset mapping, where we're really trying to, with your assistance, dig down and find the assets we have. Because now that we know where the market opportunity is in terms of growth areas of the sectors, we now need to match up the assets that we have to, as Jonathan said, the foundation that we already have. How does that connect to what parts of this sector? And we also have to remember that some of the assets we have here are significant knowledge assets. You know, we have one of the key leaders of Keene State, Antioch, SIT, World Learning. We have significant educational, the community, you're with the community, Andrew.
Community College.
Yeah, Greenfield Community College. Okay, we have significant knowledge assets in this region that also have the opportunity to contribute significantly to the development of this area. So, I mean, the retreat farm, which Vern Grubinger is working with, is a significant asset that we have here that could be worked on. So, the biggest struggle we've had in the last couple years is getting people in the region to focus beyond the region. This is a national and global opportunity to really transform, take the real strengths of this region and transform this place. You know, Carolyn's vision is that this can be the Davos of the resilient marine. Don't laugh, Jonathan. This lady helped make the USA Sports Capital. We got more assets than she had to work with, you know, okay? And we got a lot more people than just Carolyn to do this, okay? So, yes.
I'm just curious if there are other regions of the country that are trying to develop.
Yeah, there are other regions of the country. Austin, Texas has, state your name again so people.
Sure, I'm Haley Perro with Senator Sanders' office, and I was just curious if there are other regions of the country that are also trying to, you know, meet this demand.
Yes, there are a number of areas. Oregon, the University of Oregon has a significant research center. You have Austin, Texas has an area of focus. You have Syracuse University has an area of focus. Yale certainly has some focuses. But then you also have places like Antioch have significant national relationships with the EPA, okay, in terms of the whole area of climate preparedness and training people to manage through that. What we have found here, we believe, most of the other areas seem to be focused on niches, like major research in panels, major research in energy functions. But this area seems to have a real depth of talent that has systems thinking about how everything that goes into the built environment fits together, how the built environment connects to the land itself that it sits in and the environment. So what we believe we have here is a unique systems thinking approach that does not seem to exist in other areas, and we believe that may be what we would choose to build off on. So any other, one more, yes, Guy.
Yeah, I was looking, Guy Payne from Sion. I was looking at the list, Frank,
Yep.
and you know, dovetailing off of the point that was made about the trades, I don't think we've invited folks who are the directors of the career centers to be part of this.
We did.
Did we?
We have invited some, yeah. And we actually have somebody right here.
I'm not
Well,
a
no,
director.
I'm-
I'm representing one of the
From Greenfield.
one of the career
Yeah.
centers. Yeah.
So,
Which, because I'm thinking of Franklin County Technical High School,
Yeah.
Keene State, over in Keene.
Guy, this is precisely why everybody in this room is here, because we have asset mapping to do, okay, to get to this. There's a lot more assets we know still are at the table.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
One quick question. I'm Joe Heslin. I'm a consultant in marketing. But it looks like there's a really rosy picture, and that's grand. I wonder, are there any, if we're looking kind of the vertical integration, right? We have labor, we have resources. Is there anything that was specifically missing that we don't have?
Well,
Just out of
that's one of
curiosity.
the things we're going to be doing.
With the asset mapping.
With the asset mapping, and also looking into market opportunities. We have to find out what the barriers are. We want to know what the value chain gaps are, because value chain gaps are actually opportunities to attract companies and build companies to fill those value chain gaps.
Yeah.
Okay? And I know, Andrew, you and I have talked a little bit about, you know, even Unity Homes is one company, has an entire value chain. are there elements of that value chain that they've got to go outside of this region to get, that if we could get them here would reduce their cost and shrink their time to market. Okay, so and we actually have somebody here from Keene State, or Antioch, I can't remember now. Antioch. Karen Fisher.
MBA in Sustainability. Hi, Abby. Hi,
Okay.
And one of the things that we've got capabilities is a GIS mapping capability, so it'd be interesting to see how we might be able to apply that.
Right. And significant, 20 years, significant experience in value chain management in the private sector. Okay, we're going to, we have to, my job is to keep this on time, and we're about 1 minute off. So what I'd like to do now is turn it back to Jim, who's going to go through the process we're going to go through this afternoon and the rest of the next 11 months.
Okay, so first of all, there is a blueprint or a game plan for what we're going to do here, okay? This has been done before. And I want you to understand sort of the theory and the methodology that we put in play here as we move forward. It's very important to set some context on that so you understand why we're doing certain things that we're doing. Okay, the first one is, what is an industry cluster? There is a reason why these companies are here. There's an interaction, there's resources, there's knowledge, there's benefit that these companies and these individuals are receiving right now. That's why they're here, and that there's this ethic, okay? But industry cluster teams or industry cluster initiatives have a very important purpose in what we're doing. This is not a passive exercise that we're doing. We're just not analyzing things. We're taking control of our regional economy through this effort. Okay? That's how highly performing industry sectors, industry clusters, whether it's Silicon Valley, Research Triangle, or wherever, all the ones you've heard of, they operate. They operate very effectively, they collaborate, they're sharing, they have strategies, and they take action. And this is an organizational unit that we're working on, right? Frank just described all of these parts, right? Well, we're bringing all those parts together, and there's parts that we have that are missing right now. That's what a cluster does. And it's a catalyst. We all are a catalyst to provide leadership, the vision, the energy. You're going to prioritize opportunities. You all are going to take the action. You're many private business owners here. When there's opportunities that are identified, let's go get them. We don't do them as a group where there's different people that have different skill sets, but we're gonna take those opportunities, and as Frank said, to transform that regional economy. That's what we're here to do, and that's what industry clusters do. The methodology is a supply-demand analysis, is what we're gonna do. Frank just talked about asset mapping. Ultimately, that's the supply. And we're going to dig deep into what is it that we can bring to the marketplace. What do we have? We start out with what exists today. We don't start out with gaps. We want to start out with what we have, right? And understand really clearly what that is. At the same time, we've already started looking at what's the market demand globally. And you'll see in the proposition statements that they're beginning to identify what some of this demand is. Then those two begin to intersect, and we begin to analyze that. And what comes out of that is the identification of niche markets within what we talked about, this enormous market, this $300 billion market that's out there that's going to go to 600. Well, we want to take just a piece of that, right? So that's where these converge. We identify our niche markets. We know what our advantages are. We're going to take action over the next 11 months. Okay, we don't wait. We're going to see opportunities. And those are what come out of these 9 to 12 new business opportunities based upon those niche markets, based upon market demand and what we have to offer. So we purposely and very meaningfully cause those two to come together in this process, okay? We also use a very disciplined, as Frank used the term, rigorous research process. And we're starting with that today with these proposition statement or hypotheses as a starting point to say, what do we have to research? What are the specific areas that we want to know more about? We've identified what the challenges and opportunities are as step one. We've created these hypotheses or proposition statements that we're going to look at in just a minute. We've already started with that. We've already started some research, and we're going to leave here today with even more refined areas that we need to research to prove that. We're going to get a whole lot smarter, and we're going to decide whether that research proves our thoughts and our assumptions or not. And if it doesn't, we're going to go on to another one. But in many cases, it does, and we do identify what some research gaps are at that time. We'll refine that hypothesis, and we turn that into opportunity. We take the research, turn it into opportunity through value, what we call a value proposition. What's the quantified value? How do you get there? Who can do it? And then that's what relates back to you all that are in business in here. And then lastly, we take action. So we're just starting to go through this process right now. Very disciplined, so you understand why we're going through these exercises we're going to do today. So what's the schedule? And as Frank mentioned, this is a very disciplined process that we're in. We are in just completing milestone 1. We've got some things to wrap up that we'll talk about later, but that's through these 3 months. That's where we basically set the foundation, the organizational framework that we're gonna work under. We move into milestone 2, which is through April, that we're gonna leave here today. That's where we do this asset mapping. We begin to refine those propositions and the hypotheses. We get some more market information, but we begin to understand what our assets are, and we're going to do that asset mapping. And we get into milestone 3 is where we take all of that information and start turning it into business opportunity. Okay? Everything that we've learned in that first 6 months, we begin to refine those propositions. We've got a list of some things that we think where we're going already. We reestablish what our vision is based upon our goals and the economy today. And then when we get into this the final 4-month period is when we begin to institutionalize this. We put together the implementation plan that sets the stage for establishing this and sustaining this for the long term. Okay? But coming out of that, again, there's those 9 to 12. In many cases, there's even more business opportunities that come out of that work. Each one of these events are similar to today. They're open for as many industry leaders that we can get. So we're looking at the beginning of May. We'll get to that in a minute. The July-August timeframe, and then towards the end of the month. The end of the year. Okay. So very, very disciplined schedule. So how are we organized? So first of all, we have this green building industry cluster that we're all sitting in today, and we've already identified the leadership team. We have a very strong consultant team that you already met today. Obviously, we're working under the BDCC CEVED's banner. We have Building Green that's going to be doing a lot of our coordination with Candace and their team. But at the same time, we have a parallel bit of work that's going on that Vital Economy's doing around what we're calling the Southern Vermont Business Accelerator. How can we help businesses grow faster? So we're doing that bit of work right now. We have a steering committee that we're working with in that. So it's being done in parallel, and we're looking hopefully at some green building business opportunities to be the first ones to be supported by this organized business accelerator. Okay? So those are coming in parallel, and there's a little bit of an overlap there. We're also looking for related community initiatives, whether it's the Wood Heat program or many other programs that relate to or can benefit from, or we as a regional economy can benefit from by being connected and involved in what we're doing. Okay, so if you know other community initiative, CON and whatever it is, that needs to be related to this because they can get benefit, we want to know who they are. And again, coming out of that is the new business opportunities ultimately impacting those goals. So there is an organizational structure that we're working in, and you'll see more of that and what those relationships are as we move forward. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go through the proposition statements, and then we're going to break up. And so we have 4. I'm going to show you 4, but we're only working on 3 and launching 3 today. You all should have, if you weren't shown before, is it on the back?
Yeah.
On the back, you've been assigned to one of the groups. Again, the Knowledge Center is in here, Finance, Fire, Insurance is down the hall to the right, and then to the left is going to be the Products and Services Development. So let's walk through this so you get a sense of what we're going to talk about.
Just one comment on
Yep.
that. Although you've been assigned, it was our best judgment of what some of you
Yeah.
told us. If you look at this and he goes through the proposition tape and you want to move to another one, just you're certainly free to do that. Just let us know that you've done it so we know how the ship is running.
Right. Thank you, Frank. So in the breakout sessions, we're trying to accomplish 3 things. First of all, we want to gain a better understanding of what this is saying. What do we mean by that? Is there any refinements that we want to make to that, or adjustments based upon your input? And then we're going to prioritize where do we go from here. Each one, as Frank said, each one of these is an action team that we're going to talk about what the assignment is for the next 3 months. So each one of these is a team that we're really launching today. So the first one around the Knowledge Center, as Frank mentioned, that the proposition is that this can become a nationally recognized resilient design, or whatever terminology that is, knowledge center that becomes a magnet, okay, to attract talent, business capital, and visitors, right? New economic value to the region. That's the proposition. We believe we can do that, okay? Second one, around FIRE, as Frank called finance, insurance, and real estate, and other enabling solutions. The notion is that the market faces barriers in this, and we believe that we can develop affordable tools that can serve a national market that can be delivered, housed, or delivered from here. And that will create new jobs and new economic opportunity for the region, okay? Number 3, which is the one that I'll be doing, that this region has a unique base of knowledge and already national market. We've got international connections all over this area, and we believe that those channels to markets in emerging economies could provide this area a tremendous opportunity around green, resilient, sustainable planning, design, products, whatever that may be, okay? Because we've got the national connections, we think there's a huge opportunity to do that and to export. But this one is going to start later, okay? So that's where we're at. So let's go.